All right, guys. So our final topic here today, we're gonna break down and give our thoughts on the WandaVision finale. First thing I'm gonna say right off the top, and I said this on stream too. If you want to see our kind of initial day of reactions to the finale, that video is up there. That's there. Go watch the stream. It's on there. I just uploaded it as a separate video, so it's there. You can just watch our kind of breakdown of what we saw when we saw it. But now we're gonna go through not necessarily point by point breakdown every minute of the episode by any means, but we're gonna discuss it a little bit more formally this time. And I'm gonna repeat what I said in that just before the finale, I think it was Matt Shackman who was the director and one of the wasn't the writer of every episode. That was Jackie or Jack something. I can't remember. I can't remember her last name. But Matt Shackman was the director of the entire series. And he did an interview just before the finale happened, and he said that there was going to be some people out there who are disappointed with the finale, but it reaches its inevitable conclusion, and he hopes that everyone can kind of will agree about that when it happens. And I personally, having seen the finale, obviously, completely agree with that statement. Where I feel like the show 100% reached its inevitable conclusion. It didn't need to have anything. Didn't need any mutants. Like everyone thought, oh, this is the mutants. This is the time. This is the mutants. Didn't have that. Didn't need that. Engineer was nothing. Literally nothing. And then the cameo, there wasn't one. Like Paul Bettany just before the finale as well was on like Good Morning America, and he literally like confirmed. And I still thought he was just trolling at this point because the finale hadn't happened yet. But he went on Good Morning America and confirmed that he was the cameo he was talking about. Like he was joking about there being someone he always wanted to work with, in that it was himself. Like so that was confirmed that the big cameo, the big actor that Paul Bettany wanted to work with was Paul Bettany. As we saw at the end of the season or at the end of the thing, White Vision and Vision fight. So that was the whole big Skywalker cameo thing that everyone kept referring to. I'm still curious as to what about the cameo thing. I'm actually curious as to what, because that's the one thing that people kind of forget here. Like everyone was expecting some Luke Skywalker level cameo, but no one actually ever said that. Like Elizabeth Olsen was doing an interview, and the interviewee, the person conducting the interview rather, literally set up and posed the question like, "Hey, we just saw Mandalorian, and there was a big, cameo at the end with Luke Skywalker. Can we expect anything like that from WandaVision?" And she just said yes. That was it. She didn't elaborate on it. She didn't bring it up. She didn't say, guys, like, call a fucking press conference. There's a huge cameo, bigger than, like, that didn't happen.
No.
So I think it's just something that, just like the engineer, we just kind of blew out of proportion. We made it a thing where realistically, I don't know. But curiously though, my point with this is I'm curious as to what she was actually referring to. Maybe just Evan Peters. I mean, like the only thing that's weird is I think Evan Peters' episode, like episode 4 or 5, whichever one he came in at, I think that episode had already been out when this interview happened. So that's the only thing I thought was kind of odd. But
yeah.
But here's the thing. That's a no-win question for her. What if she says no? If she says no, then everybody's like, oh, well, this probably isn't going to be as good. Like, do I really want to watch? Like, I mean, like, what's she supposed to say in that situation? Like, no, we don't have Professor. Yeah, it's a no-win question. I'm glad that Paul Bettany did what he did. I'm glad that she said what she said. I'm glad that everybody involved with that show did not, what's the word, abuse, did not, I can't think of the word. Anyway, they didn't say that any of the fan speculation was wrong. They didn't come right out and say, no, you guys aren't right, or no, it isn't this, it isn't the other thing, because hopefully this will check people's expectations for shows and things going forward, because it's gotten to the point where everybody guesses every possible scenario out there, and eventually somebody hits on it. So yeah, that one person gets to say, yeah, I was right. But it's almost like a race to try and ruin any of the surprises that are left in shows anymore. It's like, well, this could be this. I mean, my God, we had Mephisto coming in, we had the X-Men coming in, it's just
Nightmare, Reed
sure,
Richards, like
yeah,
the list goes on.
eventually somebody's going to be right, but you're also going to hear every possible scenario. So by the time it happens, you will have heard it already. And so it won't be as, nobody, to be fair, nobody going into The Mandalorian that I heard said Luke. There probably was somebody out there. I probably just missed it. And luckily for me, I did. Because if I had heard Luke ahead of time, I probably would have gone into it and gone, oh, wow, that's really cool. But it would not have had the emotional impact and weight that actually seeing Luke Skywalker showed up did.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I theorized, like, logically, like, Luke fits because of the Jedi thing, right? Like, I thought, like, Luke would fit, Ezra Bridger would fit, and then what's his name from Cal Kestis would fit.
Yeah.
No, out of all of those, though, I never would have dreamed it was Luke because Mark Hamill's like 60 years old.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? And that was the main reason that, like, to your point, like, no one said it was like gonna be Luke because like everyone just assumed it wouldn't be because how could it be? You know what I mean? No one really thought they were gonna de-age, like, or do the CG, whatever they did to bring him in. There's no one thought that would be it. So it was like, while Luke was the safest play, like for them to get a big pop, it was definitely, it was good. It was totally worked out good. But this show, WandaVision, I don't think it didn't need any of that stuff. It didn't need like the gimmick of freaking mutants being the thing. Like it didn't. The purpose of the show was never to introduce Reed Richards or introduce the X-Men or whatever. The purpose of the show was to just showcase Wanda and her grief.
Wanda and Vision.
Yeah, and like that's it. Like those other things could have happened, and that's the only thing that like I kind of irks me a bit is that people, like you were saying, like we hear all these theories and like everyone everyone theories out every little thing. Like the engineer, 2 sentences happened with this engineer thing, and people blew it, and I jumped on board with it too. I was like, well, who is it? Blah blah. But it's like literally they said 2 sentences, and like I just like don't like that everyone gets so attached to like these theories in their head and then they're like disappointed by what the show actually gives them when it's like good. Like the show was good. Just because your theories didn't pan out or they didn't do what you inevitably decided you wanted them to do, because that's why you get attached to the theories, is because you get attached to those ideas. You think, well, that would be really cool, and you want that to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, you're disappointed. But that's not really fair for the show.
I'll say this. I think that is one of the downsides to serialized television. Now, with the movies, we have entire stories in one chunk. So you weren't able to watch Civil War, the first half hour of Civil War, and then theorize about how the rest of it was going to play out. You saw it all at once. You weren't able to watch the first part of Infinity War and speculate as to how they were going to beat Thanos, or even that they weren't going to beat Thanos in the end. You saw it all play out in over the course of those 2 hours. With WandaVision and these new Marvel series going forward, like this is all. I almost think they might be better served by taking the Netflix approach and dumping all the episodes at once. And then you kind of put it on the viewers to decide how they want to consume it. But at least it's all out there, and you kind of it combats that people making those wild theories that may or may not come true.
None of those theories that people had came true. I feel like there were so
none
many
of the crazy ones for sure.
Yeah, really out there ones. But there's a meme actually I saw on Facebook of that like Captain America where he's like, so you blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it said like, so you had a WandaVision theory that didn't come true.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yep, that's it.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And that's the thing though, the downside to the whole, because I would love, the one thing that I want more than anything with these shows, like Mandalorian included, WandaVision included, They need to be longer, like just a little bit longer. Like I don't like because that's the problem with dropping all the episodes at once. Is everyone talks about it for a week and then we're done. We're not talking about it anymore. With this, they got 9 weeks of every. That's all anybody was talking about for 9 weeks is what's going to happen next week on WandaVision. Like what this that. It built momentum. It debuted at like top 35, like in the top 35. It was like 35th worldwide in television program ratings and all that stuff. And then it was able to climb up to the #1 biggest show in the world because of the week by week release. Because hype kept building and building and building for it, and it became this huge thing. If they were dropped everything at once, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been a big show. It wouldn't it would have been there. People would have talked about it for a week. It would have got good ratings and all that stuff, but they definitely wouldn't have gotten the steamroll effect of it becoming the #1 show in the world. Like, as much as I would prefer them all just to drop at once, because I would just like to binge watch the whole thing and call it a day. They won't do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even Netflix is going to start not doing that. You know, which is one thing I'm really glad like that Snyder Cut is just going to be a damn movie. I really didn't want to wait a month to watch a movie that we pretty much already know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I was just like, just let me watch the movie. Like you don't break it up just to get. You already have my subscription to HBO Max. Come on, like, Jesus Christ. But anyways, Rick, you being the least MCU fan among us here. Not that you don't like the MCU by any means, but tell me what you thought about the finale here. Did it live up to your expectations? Did you like it? Or just what did you think?
I don't know really what I was expecting. I'll put it that way. It wasn't bad. I didn't walk away from it like, like, wow, that was incredible or anything. I was like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I didn't really know what to expect. So it wasn't bad. But again, I'm not as well versed in like the MCU and all that sort of stuff. So
do you think that it like Shackman said, do you think it reached its inevitable conclusion, or were you expecting something else to happen?
No, I think it did reach its inevitable conclusion. And I mean, for me, I was satisfied, but at the same time, I thought it was a little underwhelming, honestly. But looking back on it, I guess it really wasn't. So.
Yeah, and that's what I think we were talking about this before on the stream, where it's like, I don't know if someone wants to call it underwhelming, that's fine. But I would, in my head canon, I would more describe it as like there wasn't that big thing that happened.
No.
Right?
No.
Like, I think it played out just as it should have played out.
We came out of The Mandalorian with that thing, and you just almost like expected it at that point where you're like, this is gonna have something like that too, and it just didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like, I don't know if like saying underwhelming, like I don't know if I would consider that like a fair assessment, because that to me implies that you were expecting more. But kind of like I said before, like I don't know if that's really fair for the show.
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, I could totally see why, especially if you had like expectations. Like that, that's like that big Luke Skywalker cameo is going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then you go into, you're like, oh, well, this is just kind of, I don't know, expected. Because I would say, if anything, everything was kind of just, it was whelming. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't underwhelming. I was very whelmed.
Yeah,
I wasn't overwhelmed with anything, and I wasn't underwhelmed.
That's a good way to put it.
It was just whelm. So I don't know. John, do you have any like? What's your first overall impressions of it?
I absolutely loved it. I mean, we talked about this when we did the first episode review. We talked about, and I talked about how much I loved those first 2 episodes, and I said ultimately it's going to come down to how they stick the landing. And I was really worried after episode 7 when we get it was Agatha all along, and I thought, oh man, they're gonna cop out, and they're gonna do the tried and true villain was doing something bad to Wanda and caused all this, and none of this was Wanda's fault, and they're going to absolve Wanda because it was Agatha all along. And I like that they didn't that it really wasn't Agatha all along. As much as Agatha played a part in the hijinks that happened while they were in it, ultimately it was Wanda that was responsible. And I'm glad they didn't cop out on that. And so that, and then, you know, the ending, I'm sure we'll get to it, but was significantly overwhelming for me just from the emotional impact of the ending. And I mean, as much as people might want to say this wasn't, you know, this wasn't Infinity War where half the population got dusted. This wasn't Endgame where they brought everybody back and defeated Thanos. But this also wasn't a Avengers level movie. This wasn't a Civil War movie where you get a schism between two factions in the MCU. This was a Ant-Man. This was a Captain Marvel. This was a look at a singular character in the MCU and what in developing that character more, giving that character her own story or their own story in Wanda and Vision. And I know that people, again, I go back to, I've said it a million times before, I think the pandemic had people so starved for MCU content and entertainment that I think people put more weight on the show than the show deserved to have put on it. Because I think ultimately, for me, I think the show was done excellent. I think it was a great show. I loved it from the start to the end, and I wouldn't have changed anything. And I still think, you know, ultimately, it warrants its place in the MCU because you do have some significant, you know, Monica gets introduced. Monica's got powers. Monica is going to play a role in the MCU going forward. You get Vision, a Vision returns to the MCU in a fashion, you know, by the time we get to the end of it. So there's a number of things that happen that expand the MCU in general and work to continue the overall story of the MCU. But you also, it's definitely much more focused on one character or one family of the MCU.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was the one thing. Your camera froze, by the way. The one thing that I like didn't want to happen was a cookie cutter ending where everything's fine and, you know, Wanda just gets off scot free for everything she did, right? Like that was the one thing I didn't want to happen, which they didn't. I kind of said before that like I wanted there to be like some big Shakespearean kind of tragedy to it all, and where they didn't really go that far into it, they also didn't do the cookie cutter. They really landed somewhere in the middle of cookie cutter and tragedy. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting her just to be like, just in the end, the kids die, Vision dies, she gets nothing, and she's just pretty much where she was at the beginning, having now had 4,000 plus people hostage. So just making the situation worse, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, we're left with it like, I don't know, just acceptance, really. She accepts everything, and then she becomes Scarlet Witch, like truly, and like the costume looked great. Like everyone thought that costume wouldn't work in live action, and it totally did. It
Yeah,
looked
they did
great.
it well.
Looked really good.
Better than the action figure we saw at the store the other day.
Yeah, that was an old. That was
Yeah,
a
that's
vintage
yeah.
figure, though. That looked more like the Wanda on Halloween, the Sokovian fortune teller one.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it was great. And I like. I think my favorite part of the episode was the White Vision stuff when him and Vision had the whole Theseus debate.
I request elaboration.
Yeah, that was the best. I don't know. I like that part because a lot of people have said that, like, and I do see where they're coming from in this, where like they really felt like the show was super unique and like loved it all the way up, but then the end was just kind of your typical Marvel fare. Like there was a fight, and then they were fighting. Like Vision was fighting Vision, and then CGI battle, and yay, like it was true. It is kind of what it was, but I liked the Wanda using her powers thing against, you know, Agatha, and then with the runes. I don't know how she all of a sudden learned how to do the runes.
Yeah, cast the runes.
But either way, she did it. So I mean, I liked it, even if it wasn't explained. Because the only thing, my answer for that too, for anyone out there who's just like, well, how did she learn how to do that? Because like Agatha's literally sitting there saying, you don't know how to do magic, essentially, right? Like you don't know what you're doing. You're dangerous, whatever. But see, she also says that the Scarlet Witch is able to perform magic without, like, free of incantation, as I think what the direct quote from Agatha was. So realistically, the runes are there just because she thought about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she pretty much can materialize any spell just by thinking about it. That's what literally Agatha described Scarlet Witch being able to do. So that's how the runes were there. You know, she just thought, I need to put these runes up so that I'm the only person who can use magic here. So she did. Like, she didn't have to know what the runes meant or what they looked like. It's fucking magic, and she can just do it because she's a Scarlet Witch, and that's what they said that she can do.
Like, she knew what they looked like. I mean, Agatha pointed them out to her. She showed them the runes.
Yeah, I mean, she did see them too.
So,
yeah,
kind of.
So at that point, all Wanda had to do was recreate what was in that room.
Yeah,
and bam, you're done. She's toast.
Yeah, I mean, even that too.
Wanda even thanked her for like showing her the runes. You know, sarcastically, obviously, but.
Well, no, and that's why she totally like. Here's one thing though too, is she puts her under the spell to make her be Agnes, right? But then she takes down the hex, so
that confused me.
And then Agatha doesn't actually have a house there, so if she even is still under a spell to making like her think that she's just Agnes to continue on being, where did she go?
That's what
she doesn't actually have a house. Does she just go to Ralph Boner's house? Like
Ralph Boner.
You know what I mean? It's that is kind of, I don't know. It's the only thing that didn't make sense.
She created a house on the land that Vision had left for her. I mean, that's my simplistic, you know, that she owned that plot of land, so she manifested a house on that plot, and that's where Agnes is going to live. I mean, that's, you know, my overly simplistic answer to how they wrap up the Agatha thing.
No, you're probably right. I think.
Well, they show her leaving the plot of land, and it's just a plot of land.
Yeah.
Like,
sure, but I mean, she does it on her way out. She, you know.
I think it's
twinkle fingers back behind her as she's flying out.
You froze again, by the way. I think unless you're just being very still.
Yeah, you'd be a good ventriloquist.
Yeah. I think if anything too, maybe we're just reading too much into that part, and where like it's just a mental spell, and so she's just trapped in the mindset of Agnes. Doesn't necessarily have to stay in Westview. Like, Agnes can go wherever she wants. She's just stuck as Agnes as opposed to Agatha. You know what I mean?
True.
I guess that's the way I would like, because she, you know, that she kept her. If she ever needs help with something, she'll go and get her.
She knows where to find her.
Yeah, like she'll go and get her. Because I think, which kind of leads me to a good question for you guys. Do you think we're gonna see Agatha again, or do you think
maybe like in another MCU?
Sure.
Yeah, like in Doctor Strange 2 or something.
You could.
I don't know that we'll see her that soon, but I mean, we'll see her again. They left her on the board for a reason, so you know, I definitely think the fan reaction to Catherine Hahn's portrayal was
she did good.
Big enough that I think that they'll find a way to use her eventually.
I could totally see him doing the whole mentor thing, not mentory, but
well, and this is also like, you know, I mean, Scarlet Witch Wanda has now put Agatha in kind of a prison of sorts. And so, you know, this is also it's well known throughout the MCU, throughout the world now, that Scarlet Witch had done this to this town. There's 4,000 people in this town that have 4,000 families out there and friends out there that they'll tell what happened and how Scarlet Witch did this. And so, you know, who's to say maybe a villain later on down the road doesn't go, well, wait a minute, Agatha Harkness was there. She was part of this. Where's Agatha Harkness? Goes and finds her and finds a way to undo Wanda's spell, and then teams up with Agatha as a threat later on, you know. I could see a revenge aspect to that happening later on by somebody undoing what Wanda did to Agatha, and Agatha wanting some measure of revenge for it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could definitely see too, like that was one of the things I liked about the show, was that Agatha was a bad guy, but she was also mainly like, she wanted the power for herself, sure, but she was mainly just like, you're dangerous, Wanda. Like, she was like, you're dangerous. Like,
Is she though? Like we're getting
Yeah.
all this information from the character that's trying to take. That's like me saying that, my boss doesn't do a good job. You should make me the director, or, the person in charge. It's like
I would argue that she's dangerous because she doesn't know how to control her powers. I mean,
That's
look what
yeah.
happened. She put 4,000 people and took them hostage and made them play out, like mind control 4,000 people, locked kids in their rooms. Like,
but is she just
dangerous.
is she just using what happened as an excuse to try and take the power? Because she didn't come there she wasn't drawn there because of the, what's the right word? She didn't, the injustice of what was happening to those people. She was drawn there because of the power. She wanted to come and get the power that was going on. And then once she found out what was actually going on, she was like, "Hey, wait a minute. I feel like she was pretty bad."
Yeah, she's definitely a bad guy. She's definitely a bad guy. Like that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But they didn't make her a mustachy, trilly bad guy. Kind of like how they went with Hayward. They kind of just did.
Yeah,
like,
that's
like he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just a dick. But like they kind of in the end just made him just be like the dick suit.
Ultra.
Yeah.
Like, and it was kind of like, okay, we've seen that a million times, but
that was the one part I was a little disappointed in, because you made a good point the last show that we talked about, where he actually had a moment of like real human compassion, where he let Wanda in to see Vision's body. He could never let Vision go. I mean, his job is to hold the Vision's body, hold this weapon of mass destruction, and analyze it for the government. But at the same time, too, he had this moment of real human compassion where he let Wanda in to at least hopefully give her some closure and say goodbye. But then you get to this episode, and so he kind of redeems himself for, kind of the dickish things he's done up until this point. But then you get to this episode, he just goes ultra dick because he, tries to shoot the kids and then continues shooting Monica after he's already hit her 3 or 4 times. He continues loading until the clip's empty. And then he decides he's going to run him over. I mean, the guy just went off the deep end.
He did.
Yeah. Well, then even prior to that, he's like talking shit to Jimmy. Like, just like no one's gonna believe anything that happened here. Like, I'm gonna be looked at as a hero because we're gonna blame this whole thing on Wanda. Like, they're gonna think Wanda's the one who made White Vision, not me. Like, all this, it's like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, just give it a rest, my man. Like, you were cool. Like, just last episode, you looked like you were gonna be cool in the end, but nah, he just ended up being
he just ended up being a dick.
Yeah, and I think too, he knew the kids weren't real, so like I don't really care that he went to shoot the kids, but the fact that you just made a good point, he just kept shooting Wanda. Or not Wanda, but Monica. Like kept, like, as soon as you think he would have stopped. Like
he knew what he was doing.
But no, like Monica jumps in front of him and starts taking the hits, and he just keeps going. Like that's the dick part. That's the evil part. Shooting the fake kids, that's not evil. But shooting your coworker repeatedly, that's evil. Like,
let's be clear, I think shooting fake kids is pretty bad.
But they're fake. They're not real.
For the record.
Like,
but they were real in that moment. They were real. He doesn't know that they're not real.
He knew they weren't real. He watched WandaVision. They watched the kids be born and turn 10 like a day later.
He doesn't know that she doesn't have the power to create life, or that she create. I mean, they were real to an extent.
They weren't. They knew they weren't real. He knew they weren't real. Like, they weren't real because they're gone. They ain't real. That's not the big deal.
Are they though? Are they though?
Yeah, because I think that actually is Mephisto fucking with her.
Really?
Because I think it's, or something like that. Because I think that part is like obviously what's going to tie into Multiverse of Madness. Obviously, we just jumped to the end where in the post-credit scene where Wanda's going through the Darkhold.
The second post-credit scene.
The second post-credit scene.
If you didn't know that there were 2, there is.
Yeah.
Go back and watch all the way until the show stops running, because.
Yeah. So in that though, she's going through the Darkhold and Tommy, the kid, yells like, "Mom, help!" Whatever. I think that is like a Mephisto or a nightmare or something, some dark magic related thing from the Darkhold, trying to manipulate her. Trying to do like gonna make her think that it's Tommy asking for help. Like, you just gotta do this. I'm trapped here, and like, but really, it's gonna be she fucking unlocks a door for something else. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what that is. Personally, that just what makes the most sense to me because the kid isn't real. So how could the kid be communicating in any way? Probably because it's somebody impersonating
why
the
isn't he
kid.
real?
The show told you it wasn't real.
No, it didn't. I mean, she altered reality. She was able
only
to
with that spell
reconstruct
inside the hex, though. It was only inside the hex.
Yeah, like that's how.
But it
Vision
was
didn't
real.
exist
It wasn't
outside of-
imaginary. It wasn't fake. She was literally able to create. I mean, Vision was able. Her vision that she created was able to fight the real Vision that got brought in from outside. I mean, they are real. They
They're
may be
spells, though. They're
manifestations
not
that she
real.
created, but they're not imaginary. They're not fake. They're not.
They are.
They're not. They
They're
don't. They have
constructs. It's like Green Lantern
corporeal-
constructs. That's literally all it is.
Except
it's
they're not
only
real.
real.
They can
there.
think for themselves, and they can.
Yeah, but
though?
that's only with the hex. Like they were only real inside the anything that was inside the hex is real as real can be.
So if you take a human to outer space, are they no longer real? I mean, just because
because they're a carbon-based being. These things were not carbon-based beings.
Sure, they were.
Ooh, that's a good argument.
No,
for
they
that.
weren't. As soon as the hex went down, they deteriorated. They started
As
breaking
soon
away.
as a human goes to space, they die. They deteriorate. They like.
No, that's completely different. These things weren't real. They were literally make-believe things.
Let us know
They
in the
weren't
comments
real.
what you think.
Like they were. As soon
I
as
don't
the
know.
hex goes away,
I don't
which
view
is
them as
just
real.
magic. It's
I'm not-
all magic. They disappear.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of the show. Like that's why it was when they're not real. None of them are real.
It's not real.
That's why Vision isn't here anymore. They're gone. They're all gone.
What do you think is going to happen with White Vision?
I don't know.
He was real.
He'll come back at some point,
Yeah.
but he's not going to be Vision. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's going to be like this new thing. That's why I think they're going to go that route with, just like they did in the comics, where he has all the memories of Vision, but he's not Vision because he's a new thing now.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
So that's actual physical Vision's body then, like the original.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't technically say and show that. Well, no, they actually did that. They said that like you are. I think Paul Bettany's. I think the fake Vision said that you are like the real Vision, like in physical form, but not in mental form. Where he was kind of he was a different thing. Like he was an imaginary version of Vision, and neither were Vision, but both were Vision. That's why that was a good scene because it was just that was good stuff. But yeah. So those things aren't real.
I was gonna say, yeah, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one because I think it certainly felt real, and I think it was just as real for Wanda as it was for anybody else.
Yeah, but it was because of the hex, though. That's why as soon as the hex is gone, nothing is a thing anymore.
Well, I mean, as soon
Even
as
if she can create it,
nobody
then,
here
like,
exists
that's-
either. So, like, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
are
that's
we
already
all-
a thing. Like Wanda
Not real.
created the thing. So like
I understand, but just because she creates a thing doesn't mean that the things that are inside it aren't real. Like I understand they went away and they went away, but that doesn't mean that they didn't exist, that they weren't there, that they didn't have agency and an effect on the people around them while they were there. I mean, they had physical forms, they fought, they had interactions, they talked, they felt
they were
emotion,
real
like-
inside the hex. I agree with you there.
exactly.
But
So
the hex can't. The
so
hex
he was
itself
shooting.
is
So he
not
was shooting
real.
real kids. He was shooting real kids in the hex. That's
In the
I mean, that's what I'm
hex.
saying.
In the
If he
hex,
had-
they were real, but they weren't real.
If he had hit them with bullets, they would have died. Wanda would have had to watch her kids die because he was shooting kids. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if you know that they're, not going to survive outside of an area or not. When you shoot kids, and you're a dick. I mean,
Oh, it's
that's
still a
about
dick
as
move.
much as you can
Yeah.
get.
It's a dick move whether they're real or fake. I mean, you don't shoot kids, but I don't consider him evil for shooting imaginary beings. It's like if it's imaginary. Like, you know what I mean? He's just a dick. You know what I mean? Like,
he is just a dick.
he was just a dick.
If you have a kid and they bring you their stuffed teddy bear and it's their best friend in the world and you proceed to rip that bear's head off,
Or
you're
shoot
a
it.
dick. Regardless of whether or not that bear is real
yeah.
or exists or has a life, you're still evil. You're evil for doing
But
that.
it's not
You're
a
evil.
magical
Yeah.
thing, construct. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Who knows?
I was going to say something else. I forget it now, but yeah.
Okay, well,
We'll go
where do you this is what well, no, I feel like we covered most of everything anyway. I'm trying to think, what did we miss? Oh yeah, the Pietro thing. So obviously he was just
Boner.
Ralph Boner. Like, what elaborate on how you felt about that, because I know you said before that it would be kind of useless. Like, why bring Evan Peters in if he's not gonna do that?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love the show, I'm really disappointed that they did that. That they chose to do that, because I feel like, I mean, we've said it before, it's just a giant troll to the audience. Like, why bring in that actor from that franchise to play that role? I'm assuming they did it as an homage to what came before, to the X-Men universe or franchise. I'm guessing that when they finally get asked about it, that'll be why they cast him. But it felt like a big, just kind of like, because like you said last week, I mean, that was the cliffhanger for an episode. Like, the cliffhanger was, oh, here's Quicksilver from the X-Men franchise showing up, playing her brother. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's this all mean? Like, it was done very intentionally and very knowingly on their part as to what it would mean to the audience, to much of the audience, to see that actor show up in that role.
I think
So
Yeah, no,
a lot of people off, I feel like.
well, and that's the thing. Like, I said this on stream too, because I was watching, like, I use the example here because I saw John Campea talking about it. And he said that he used Tobey Maguire being cast as like Uncle Ben in a Spider-Man movie as like an example of like that's what this was like. It's like a cool thing that fans have always wanted, like something to, happen. Like, you bring Christian Bale in for a cameo in a Batman movie, that kind of thing. But the argument that I would make with this is that this is an entirely different thing. This was explicitly set up to just cheaply throw you off, because he was set up as Quicksilver. He showed up and he was the cliffhanger of the episode. It wasn't that we knew. If we would have known that he was playing Ralph Boner and saw that Agatha put a spell on him to trick Wanda into thinking it's Quicksilver, then that's the equivalent of Tobey Maguire playing Uncle Ben, because we know that it's not Quicksilver. This was set up for 4 or 5 episodes for you to not know if this was really Quicksilver or not. Like, that's the difference, It's not like someone coming in for a quick cameo as like an homage to that world. They literally did it just to blatantly misdirect people, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but I could totally understand why someone would be like upset or disappointed or just downright kind of angry about it, because like it's a cheap trick, like, because they didn't just tell us what it was. You know what I mean? It's not that they needed to, but at the same time, I don't know. I get why people would be upset about it, because they string you along and deliberately make you think that this is Quicksilver in some capacity, whether it's X-Men Quicksilver or something. You know what I mean? It wasn't just Evan Peters doing a fun, quick cameo. Like, they made you think he was fucking Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Like, plain and simple.
I mean, they gave him Quicksilver's powers. They just
everything.
Yeah,
They kept making you think, like, they kept telling you that it is Quicksilver more so than doing something fun. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. If he had, even I would even go so far as say I would have been more accepting of it if he had showed up and said, "I'm Pietro," and said like things that made her believe that he was, but didn't have the powers. Like if he didn't have the powers, then it'd be like, well, why don't you have your powers? And it was left ambiguous. Like we had more, the audience, if the audience had more information or at least more clues that he wasn't Pietro, other than, because using the same actor makes you just start questioning, like you said, like, plus everybody's theories about the multiverse and how it's going to factor in. There are announcements ahead of time about the multiverse coming off of the Spider-Man movie, where they introduced the concept of the multiverse to, it all sets it up for this to be more than what it ultimately ended up being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the only thing I quote unquote take issue with, was just how they executed it, because they deliberately did it. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing by casting, because none of that would have happened if it was Aaron Taylor Johnson who showed up. And they could have very well just made it Aaron Taylor Johnson, because it was a witch did it. Like, they could just, like, Wanda manifested Vision and kids. So Agatha it would have been perfectly fine for them to say that, well, she just created an illusion of freaking Pietro, like, of the real one, of Aaron Taylor Johnson, and then just did it that way. Like,
or they could have cast an actor that wasn't the only other actor in the world that's played Pietro.
Yeah, that's too.
They could have cast anybody else in that town. Could have been anybody else, but they, that's like I said, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and that's explicitly it, because of all the tie-ins and then them not being more upfront about it. It was a cheap trick in the end. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad that it's not Quicksilver. I'm not mad that it wasn't the X-Men and all that stuff. I just think it was a cheap way of misdirecting. Like, you know what I mean? I just think it's fine that they did it. Doesn't mean it's not a cheap trick. Like, so, but in the end, like I said, I'm fine with it. Like, I didn't think Monica would get her powers, though. I think we forgot to talk about this when it happened. I was actually kind of surprised that they gave her the powers in the series in general. Just kind of talking generalities for the season. I kind of figured they would have waited till season 2, or not season 2, but Captain Marvel 2. The other thing is, though, too, with this, or I said that I was kind of glad that the thing didn't end with like a cookie cutter thing. You saw in the scene here with like when Dottie comes up in particular, and I kind of touched on this before, where she comes up, and I mean, they all come up and they're like telling Wanda, please stop, like, you doing this, whatever. But Dottie's like, can you please just like let my daughter out of her room? Like, I just want to see her. Like, so like literally this entire time, like, kids have been locked in rooms, like people have been locked in rooms, like whatever. Like, this shit was wrong, to say the least.
Oh yeah,
what she did. So that's what honestly made the scene at the very end where Monica is like, they'll never know what you gave up for them. Like, bitch, I don't think they give a fuck. Yeah. Like, they're fake ass like, she literally put 4,000 people, held them hostage, locked kids in their rooms. Like, they don't give a shit that she had to get rid of their fake family.
Exactly.
Like, that's absurd. I can't believe they left that line in there for her to say. It made Monica seem like the stupidest character in the world. Like, never know what they had. Like, they don't give a shit. Yeah, like they want their lives back. What are you talking about? So that's why I'm glad that she's on the run, though, and they didn't just do the Agatha all along. And like you said, like, Wanda just gets off scot-free. Like, at least, despite Monica's stupid line, she's actually on the run. She isn't hiding. Like, they implied the fact that she was in hiding at the very end with the post-credit scene. So, like, there's that, because that line just like kind of was just like, are you really? Like, they even showcase, like I said, with Dottie and all these stuff, like, these people were not having a good time. No. They were not having a good time at all. And so yeah, I just thought that was kind of stupid. Did you have any like opinion on that one, John? That line of hers?
I mean, I understand why they threw it in there. It was because they were adding even more weight, even more emphasis to what Wanda had given up. But you're right in that I don't think the town would have really cared ultimately. The other thing that's, I mean, it's not here or there necessarily, but it's also curious how, we don't have a real good idea of what kind of time frame this whole event took place. Was this a matter of days? Was this a matter of weeks, months? How long had these people actually been held hostage for? How long had they, you would think it's probably only been a few days. So, not that it changes what she's done in any real way, but the shorter amount of time, I guess, maybe the less impactful it was on their lives. But yeah, it was. I didn't even think about the line when she said it because I was just so wrapped up in like actually what Wanda had given up from me as the viewer, and as Darcy said, I'm invested. I was invested in those characters, and the whole end just emotionally was the gut punch the inevitable gut punch that you knew was coming, and it wasn't just a punch; it was multiple stab wounds, and then turning the knife and turning the knife and turning the knife because it just went on and on and on.
I actually didn't get very emotional about it.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I did.
Like, surprisingly.
It was.
I cried, like not cry, like bawl my eyes, but like I'll tear up from like stupid stuff in a lot of movies.
Oh,
like,
me too.
Like I'm
not afraid to admit it.
Yeah, like it'll happen, but like this, like a scene like you're saying, like it is explicitly there to tug on your heartstrings, and like I didn't care.
Yeah,
like I don't know why. It just didn't. It didn't have that effect on me for some reason.
Now
like,
Luke Skywalker coming back though.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
like that made me pretty teary eyed.
Yeah,
like
Kevin Smith, man, he got real emotional about it.
About WandaVision.
Yeah, I told you he posted that picture of himself crying. It was just like it was beautiful.
I liked it. I don't take me like not being emotional about it as a bad thing, because like I know what they were trying to do. It didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't hit me like that.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah,
but I thought it was good. I think like in the end it did reach its inevitable conclusion. Like I don't think they needed to do anything else. I don't really think anything was missed. Is there anything that you like wanted to see out of it that didn't happen?
Not for me. I mean, I wouldn't have changed much with it. It worked. Like I said, but my expectations for it, I think, were a lot more subdued than a lot of other people's. Like, I like the Mephisto character, and it's obviously it's one of the big bads of the Marvel universe, but like there were people that were all in. Like I couldn't open up Instagram or Facebook or Twitter without seeing something Mephisto like every week after the episode came out. Like, oh, was Mephisto's the cat? Mephisto's the cat. Like, just calm down. Like, if it's Mephisto, they'll tell us it's Mephisto. Like, it's okay. I don't know. Like, all the different theories and stuff. Like, if anything, I almost wish that I could. I feel like I need to go on a social media kind of break when these, like, I'm wondering if I shouldn't try and go on one when Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out, because like I don't know if I'll make it every week seeing like everybody say, oh, it's the Red Skull's back doing this. Like, I can just see it now. Like, people are gonna hop on every little thing and be like, oh, it's this doing this, and it's like, just let the story play out. Like, have fun with it. They're gonna tell you the story that they want, and like, I don't know.
That's the thing. I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier is not gonna be that kind of show. Like, I don't think it's gonna draw as much speculation week to week. Like, I don't think it's gonna have that mystery element to it. I think it's gonna be real straightforward. Just not like it's bad. Like, I think we were saying this on stream. Like, I think it's gonna be more of like a run of the mill Marvel kind of thing. And then you made the point where it's like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, just being able to watch something, just enjoy it,
and not constantly speculating over.
Exactly. And so that's not really a bad thing. I really do think that that's what Falcon and the Soldier is going to be. I don't think there's going to be much to theorize. Like, I think it's going to be, I'm just talking out my ass right here. I have never seen the show. I don't know. It could be a huge mystery driven show, but it just seems like it's going to be like, you got your good guys and your bad guys, and we're just, there we go. Like, as opposed to like, this was explicitly designed to be a mystery kind of thing. You're not supposed to know what's going on until the end. Like,
That's a good point. I actually hadn't thought of that. That's a good point, that this show was kind of established as a mystery, that it lent itself to speculation after each episode. So maybe I'm being a little, I am. I'm just being a little overly harsh, I guess. But part of, I think part of it was just the certainty with which people were saying, like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen.
Oh yeah,
So,
and everybody, that's on us as fans for sure. We all blew the stuff way out of proportion.
Oh, for sure.
Like, instead of just patiently waiting until next week and just accepting whatever the show is for what it is, no, we spent more time thinking about what could happen as opposed to just watching it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's
yeah.
people out there who spent more time thinking about WandaVision than the full runtime of WandaVision. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
isn't really a bad thing. It's just you set yourself up for disappointment in a lot of ways when you do that, because
Yeah, because if it doesn't happen the way you picture it happening, it's like it disappoints you, just like you said.
yeah, or like you feel like it wasn't good. Well, like your idea was better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing that's like the same can be said for, like, when you fan cast actors and stuff, right? It's like it's all like you're picturing the character in your head, like, so, like, like I always said, like, Chris Pine would make a great Hal Jordan. He'd make a great Hal Jordan the way I'm picturing Hal Jordan, but someone might write Hal Jordan in a completely different way, and Chris Pine would be absolutely the wrong person for it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's the same concept. Like, everyone who wanted Mephisto had their own idea of what Mephisto even was. You know what I mean? Mephisto, if he ever does make an appearance, could still disappoint all of those people because they're not portraying Mephisto the same way they're imagining him being portrayed. Like, look at freaking Dormammu in Doctor Strange. Dormammu was nothing like Dormammu, like, in the comics. Like, even in the Spider-Man cartoon, like, he was nothing like your classic Dormammu character. Like, he was kind of, but, like, not really. He didn't even look remotely the same. I don't know. They always tend to do their own thing. So I feel like this scene, though, this is really the last thing I think we haven't touched on with the scroll. It was obviously Nick Fury, right? That she's referring to. Like,
Sure.
an old
An
friend
old
of your
friend of-
mom. Like,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That would make sense.
That's what I figured. Because I figured this was. Do you think we'll see Monica in the Secret Avengers show then? Or the Secret Invasion show,
Secret
rather?
Invasion, yeah.
I
definitely.
think, yeah. I'm thinking
Interesting.
that's setting
thought-
that up more
I-
than Captain Marvel.
I thought when she transformed into the scroll here, I thought that was going to be. I thought Sam Jackson was going to walk in off the other side of the stage, and that was going to be
good.
that was going to be the Luke moment that they had talked about for the series. I thought
That should have
going
happened.
to walk off the stage, walk off on the other side, and say, "Hey, look, we need you," or "We're doing this," or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I mean, basically, that's what I mean. I guess they left it open-ended enough that if for some reason they don't want to end up using her in the Secret Invasion show, they can put her in something else. But that definitely is the very strong implication they gave, is that that's where she's going to show up next.
Yeah, that's where my headspace was, because that's why I think maybe they gave her powers in this, because, like, initially, like I said, I thought, like, she'd probably get them in Captain Marvel too, but if they're going to introduce her with her powers in this, then she probably could be a little bit more useful in the Secret Invasion arc that they're doing, especially since they're not doing the Secret Invasion from the comics. So
Yeah.
she would probably fit in there. I don't know. It just seemed to make a logical sense that she would go there as opposed to Captain. I'm sure she'd still probably show up in Captain Marvel too, but like I said, I figured she would have been more of a central character in that. But since they gave her powers and everything, like, I think they probably have more plans for her in the Disney Plus realm of things. So
Yeah.
Is there anything else that well, I guess with the final post-credit scene, the last thing that I'll just add to it is I think that, like, obviously, I think this sets up that, like, Wanda is going because Elizabeth Olsen herself has said, like, WandaVision tease up her character for Multiverse of Madness. Like, so obviously, I feel like she's explicitly referring to this scene. So I think what is going to happen here, theory time, is this is kind of like what I said with the whole Tommy reaching out to her when she hears the kid's voice and everything. No, it's gone. Um, I think her experimenting and going through with the Darkhold is gonna be like the problem in Multiverse of Madness. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's how that's gonna tie in, and like I said before too, I think I said it on stream, like, I think Doctor Strange is gonna, like, if there's this whole thing in the Darkhold that Agatha referred to that has, like, the lore of the Scarlet Witch in it, where, like, she's prophesized to destroy the world or whatever, pretty sure Doctor Strange knows about that too, being the Sorcerer Supreme. So, I think it's, like, kind of a twofold thing, like, based on these events, Doctor Strange learns that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, probably seeks her out himself, I would imagine. Elsewise, her doing the stuff with the Darkhold, maybe someone like your Mephisto or your Nightmare or whatever is trying to trick her with Tommy and her kids, you know, so like they end up maybe she can manifest the kids for real, but like it's the kind of more like in the comics with it's both they are real, but they're a part of Mephisto. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe it's something like that. Who knows? I don't think Wanda's gonna be like the villain of Doctor Strange 2, but I think she might be like an antagonist. Like she might be the catalyst of something that causes the madness. You know what I mean? Like I don't think she's gonna be because she's not evil. You know what I mean? That's what I was trying to kind of what I was meaning with like Hayward, right? Like he was just a dick. He wasn't necessarily evil. I mean, you could argue even though he's trying to shoot kids, like it's a pretty evil thing to do, whether or not they're real or not, whatever. That's fine. I still think he's just more of a dick. And like even with Wanda, she may have put 4,000 people in mind control and all this stuff, but she didn't have like the intent to do that. You know what I mean? It just kind of happened. She doesn't have.
Didn't she?
It didn't. It didn't happen with evil intent.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? It happened because she couldn't control her powers. Like she didn't even know. Now, granted, as she's talking with Pietro, she does become self-aware of it all. It doesn't really do anything to stop it. So she is selfish, but she's not evil. You know what I mean? She's going to do, like, obviously she's going to do whatever she can to try to get her kids, theoretically. Like, you know what I mean? So, and that's why I think like, it's going to be some bad stuff. But so I can see her being an antagonist, a catalyst of some bad stuff, but I don't think she's going to go, like, full villain. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Would you guys got anything else you want to add? Do you think what do you think about Doctor Strange 2 in her next appearance?
I don't know. I don't. It's Doctor Strange's movie, so I'd be surprised if she was heavily involved. I
That's
think
what I'm
she'll,
saying.
she'll show up. I mean, Civil War was a unique movie in that it was a Captain America movie, but it really was almost like an Avengers 2.5. I'm trying to think of another MCU film where they had I mean, I could see her playing like the Scarlett Johansson Black Widow part that she played in Iron Man 2, like that kind of role, like not a main. I just think it's since it's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Obviously she'll have a role, and she said that she's in it. I don't know. They didn't title it Doctor Strange and Wanda: The Multiverse of Madness.
No.
They kept it just Doctor Strange 2. So I'm gonna, I'm not ready to go all in and say that she's like the bad guy or the antagonist for him for this yet, but we'll see.
The only reason I mainly think that though is because when they announced Doctor Strange 2, they announced it with Wanda being a part of it. Like she was there on stage when Scott Derrickson came out and said, "We're doing," and Kevin Feige even they said, "We're doing Doctor Strange 2 and it's going to feature the Scarlet Witch." And then she came out on stage with them. She's been a part of it since when Scott Derrickson was still attached to the damn thing. And then they've been filming Doctor Strange now for a few months, and she's still there filming. Like she's been there.
So you think she's going to play a pretty prominent role?
Yeah, I think she's going to be in a pretty solid amount because normally, if someone has a very small role, they can get that done in a week, 2 weeks. Like she's been in London filming Doctor Strange since they started filming Doctor Strange. Like so, I don't know. I think she's gonna be almost like a buddy cop kind of situation with them. Like, I don't think that they're like just that much screen time for both of them. You know what I mean? I think it's gonna be more than Tony Stark and Spider-Man, right? Far more than that. Like, I think it's gonna be more like akin to a Black Widow thing, but like I think there's gonna be some definite interplay with it because I really do think that she's gonna be like the catalyst to it all in some way, or at least play a part in it. If it's not the whole thing, like maybe her Darkhold experimentation here, and someone like maybe the combination of that with whatever Doctor Strange is up to. Maybe that they just like kind of connect. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just talking out my ass. We know nothing. We know
Speculation,
absolutely
purely.
nothing. Like, and oh yeah, and then the fact that she said that this tees up her character for Doctor Strange 2, that's what makes me think, okay, well, like antagonist stuff. You're going through the Darkhold, and this tees up your appearance. That's where I'm ahead with spaces with it. But in the end, I thought it was good. I liked it.
It was good.
So, still looking forward to Loki.
If this is the quality that we can expect from these MCU series, I won't be canceling Disney Plus for a long, long time.
No, for sure. Like, yeah, like after the Mandalorian, this, and then now we got Falcon Winter Soldier in like 2 weeks. So, Falcon Winter Soldier used to be my most anticipated until that Loki trailer, and then that became my most anticipated. So, but I still really very excited to see Falcon Winter Soldier. So, but right after that, we'll have Black Widow, and then Loki, and then maybe Black Widow.
Yeah.
Maybe might get delayed again. So we shall see. But let's wrap this up here, then, guys.